Wow, here we are. Much bigger crowd than Harvard, by the way. Thank you for being here. My personal opinion, this is the best university. Where do I begin? So much chaos, so much conflict, and war of narratives. And on a personal level, I'm just caught up in this entire chaos. My personal choice, I don't want to be in it. For many people, it's like creating a career. It's business. And for me, I tried to escape it a long time ago from the Middle East. Even I had to abandon my family, lose my security, everything that had to do with the Middle Eastern culture. It's not that I'm saying anything against it. I just did not want to be part of that chaos anymore. The religious war, the political war, the human delusion, the torture, the child abuse, the children indoctrination, the deception. I got so tired of that. And I thought I moved to the United States, where things are going to be much better. You know, back in 1987, when they started chanting Intifada, Intifada, and from the river to the sea, whatever they meant, things developed very, very fast in a negative way. Within 2 years, it became an absolute chaos. Stabbing, mass shooting, suicide bombing. And the situation became irreversible, even up to this point. It's very hard for me to actually trace the chain of events that brought us there. But my personal opinion, that the false narrative lead eventually to violence. When some people live in the victim mentality, and they feel that they are entitled for revenge, or entitled for something, and the people don't meet with their expectations, then they decide to turn violent. I think this is not acceptable. This is not the qualities of the civilized society, the developed societies. And this is the jungle where I came from, where in our city, I witnessed one time honor killing. I don't know if you understand what an honor killing is. It's basically killing a woman for shame, even if the woman was raped in that culture. The parents or the siblings would feel so much shame that they prefer to kill the woman, bury her, so they don't have to deal with the social pressure. One of those days, a father killed his daughter at the city center with a metal pipe, opening up her skull, as hundreds of people watched the event, and no one stopped him. Why? Because women in that culture, and I don't mean to be offensive, are considered as a property. It's up to the father, it's up to the brother. This is not the business of the other people walking on the street. I mean, it's very, very hard for me to talk about this stuff because it appears like I am bashing into the Middle Eastern culture and people, but it's really important to understand, because what is a society, if the society agrees on violence towards women, abuse towards children, and the legitimacy of child indoctrination, what is left in the society? It's finished. What is a society where women are cancelled? So many people go into the rabbit hole trying to figure out the origins of the Middle East conflict. But nobody asks the question, let's say, make the connection to the women abuse and to women cancellation. I'm not saying that women are not strong there. Some women are very, very strong. But when you steal women's freedom, then you kill the essence of the social creativity, the spirit of the society. And the diversity of the society is finished. As some of you know, I was brought up in a Hamas household as part of the Islamic, Middle Eastern, Arabic culture. My ethnicity is Arab. Many people mix between Arab and Palestinian. And we tell them Palestinian is indoctrination. It's not an ethnicity. It's not a race. It's not a religion. It's just indoctrination, a political ideology that actually started in 1964. But Arabs, we were before Islam was born, with a great heritage. And I would never actually go against the Arabic culture or the Arabs as ethnic group, because it's legitimate. And they have a heritage of an intellectual property, poetry. They're known for their generosity. There are so many amazing things about the Arab culture that actually has been forgotten and replaced by a totalitarian system that most people consider it as a religion. And when I rebelled against the religion, and when I rebelled against the political ideology, that, as a child, they had to force on me the Palestinian identity, expecting from me to die for the cause. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to please the society. I wanted to please my parents. I ended up going to prison because of that, multiple times. They beat me up when I did not meet with their expectations. Torture, abuse, rape, honor killing, name it. And the person supposed to just stay silent, not complain. If you tell them, no, we have something wrong here, you immediately become a traitor. You are labeled, you lose your status, and they're going to go after you. And I did not like this. I did not like the fact that I was in a society and the household of a leader, top leader, that all of us were terrified of people's judgment, and we had to meet with their expectations, with their political ambitions and the religious protocols. And it's insanity. They killed my potential, and they are still killing the potential of generations to come by enforcing nonsense. This whole Palestinian thing, and the whole world is divided, and I don't mean to be offensive, but it's truly non-existential. And when I dropped that false identity, it's my birthright. I was born free. I was not born Palestinian. I was not born American, even though today I'm a proud American. But didn't I have the right to say that I don't want to be Palestinian since my ethnicity is an Arabian? This is my mother tongue. This is my language. This is my culture. A Palestinian thing started by Yasser Arafat, an Egyptian person. And he claimed to be Palestinian. Then he wanted to destroy Israel. That was his quest. Built an army, moved to Jordan. In Jordan, he tried to overthrow the Jordanian king. 20 years or so, please forgive me, I'm not sure about the years, but many years in Jordan. Then he ended up clashing with the Jordanian king. Then Black September happened. Thousands of civilians were caught up in the fire on both sides. And the Jordanian king kicked him out of Jordan. They moved to Lebanon. Within no time in Lebanon, the civil war started, one of the nastiest wars of the region. They destroyed Lebanon completely. Then they expected from us to fight on behalf of their cause. So they started the first Palestinian Intifada. When the masked men came into our school and asked us to leave, they said, go to the checkpoints and throw rocks on the Israeli army. We thought that was a great idea. We loved it because we wanted to escape the class and the border. And it was our opportunity to be freedom fighters. So we ended up going to the checkpoints, throwing rocks, clashing with the soldiers. And of course, at that time, we did not understand, how dangerous is that. And many people say today, hey, they're just children throwing rocks at the soldiers. We say, no, this is a barbaric practice coming from savage societies to stone somebody to death. It's much worse than a bullet to hit someone with a rock. But Yasser Arafat wanted to show the image of a Palestinian child throwing a rock at an advanced tank. And that got the global attention. And of course, as children, we did not understand his game at all. We just were anything. I don't want to go to that class. I want to go to the checkpoint. And we became rebels. I remember we were just 10 or 12 years old and we're just throwing rocks at the Israeli vehicles on a daily basis. That was our job. And for 3 years, we did not go to school. 3 years. They paralyzed the educational system. Then they paralyzed the economy. Then they shut down the stores. If the vehicles moved during the day, they burnt people's houses, people's vehicles. They scared everyone. They kidnapped women. They killed people for the suspicion of collaborating with Israel. And not to mention the clashes with the IDF that resulted also in civilian casualties. It just, things went completely out of control. So the first targeted schools and universities. And today when I look what's happening in the United States, it's just opened my trauma. Like I now remember, it's like where exactly we were before things got really bad in the West Bank and Gaza. So I was supposed to die and get crucified on behalf of corrupt leaders in Tunisia, in the diaspora, in Qatar, in Turkey, cultivating wealth, making billions of dollars, while we are drowning in despair, in pain, in chaos, no order. And today, when I just stand and say, what is Palestine? And when I challenge the pro-Palestine, what is that? What does it stand for? Or what is a Palestinian? Because I lived it. And I know it's a black hole. And nothing can satisfy it. Nothing. And it's so conflicted, this identity called Palestine. And this is why when they say, free Palestine, I don't know what Palestine they are talking about. The Hamas Palestine, the Fatah Palestine, the Public Front Palestine, and all of them don't agree on one concept. They don't agree on constitution. They don't have a compass. And if they succeed, God's forbidden, of destroying the only democracy in the Middle East, I guarantee you that after that, they will kill each other. Because this is tribalism. And we are caught up in the situation of a 7th century tribalism. It's not up to the individual or individuality like here. And some of us, of course, want to enforce our values on a culture that does not believe in right and wrong, or they believe in shame and honor. And it's all up to the tribe, not up to the individual. If the individual is not under the umbrella of the tribe, they get eliminated, disowned. Their blood become halal. And I'm a living example. And by the way, many people think like, why did you're a sellout. You sold your family for the shekels. Easy said. But in reality, it's the biggest challenge. Because outside of the tribe, in that culture, it's very similar when you take a fish out of the sea. It dies immediately. We're so dependent on the tribe. And I did not like that I had to please the tribe, and the tribe had to please the value system, the unwritten law of their society, the subculture, and most importantly, where people feel in slavery to such corrupt leadership, in total denial of their corruption. In fact, they think it's a privilege to become a billionaire like Yasser Arafat, and all of them are just small Yasser Arafats. They want to be that. And the more Yasser Arafat created chaos, the more he got recognition, and he had been rewarded for his violence. Then today they continue to play the same game of sacrificing children for political and financial gain. And when I say this, I take full responsibility for my words. You may not understand it now. You may disagree with it, and it's your right. But sooner or later, you will come to realize this is the truth that I lived there, and it's to the core of the Middle Eastern problem. And I wonder, for how long we're going to allow such con artists decide the future of the children. Not only the Arab children, but also the Jewish children. And they are gaining momentum now. They gain in legitimacy. And many people are sympathizing with the victim. And many people are also hypocrites, posing as the saviors, which is even a lot more dangerous. Okay, I have a couple of maps that I would like to show you so you understand. I want to give you facts, because I'm sure among you they're like faculty, so I don't want to lose my credibility, then not get invited again to Princeton. You don't have to invite me again. Hopefully I will be gone after this conflict is over. So basically what we are looking at is what was prior to the British Mandate of Palestine. This is the Ottoman Empire. They occupied our region for 400 years. This is the last Islamic empire. The Ottoman Empire was the final Islamic Khilafah, or maybe ISIS. They tried later on, but they did not succeed. So this is 1913, approximately 6 years before the collapse of the Ottoman Empire, which was the outcome of the World War I. And can we see, please, map number 2? There we go. So now this is the new color. What you see the British influence and control. Most of the land that I'm interested to discuss tonight is between France and Great Britain. This is when the British Mandate of Palestine was born. It started developing in 1919, but then it was manifested in 1922. This was the beginning of what we know today as Palestine. Of course, why the British choose the name of Palestine? Because there were some ancient group that actually we don't have any evidence of their existence except in the Jewish Bible, and could be some Roman text that called the Philistines. But they vanished. To connect them to the people today and say, they have the same DNA, they have the same Bible, they have the same currency, they have the same scripture, lineage, that's not true. They're totally disconnected. And so they call the region from the river, the Jordanian River, to the Mediterranean Sea, Palestine. In that region, we had Jews, Arabs, Druze, Christians, Muslims, invaders, all type of people. And all these people were given a Palestinian passport issued by the British. So the Jews who lived in that era, the colonial entity, from 1922 to 1948, the Jewish people were called Palestinians. Everybody was called Palestinian. But who invented the name Palestinian and who issued the passports and the currency? It was the colonial entity of Palestine. When they say it's the British Mandate of Palestine, so Palestine is called after the mandate, not vice versa. So basically, this is where it started. And as you see, prior to 1922, there was no country called Palestine. There was the Ottoman occupation, approximately 400 years, or actually exactly 400 years of occupation. These are the ones who kept us in the darkness because they put a siege on our region. They do not allow us to read. They did not allow us to print. Europe got out of the dark ages. They start printing. They rebelled against the absolute control of the church. But the Ottoman Empire, they kept us in the darkness. They did not allow any intellectual property coming from outside world. We were totally disconnected. And of course, our ancestors. And we did not have, of course, internet at that time to have access to the rest of the world. So this is why, actually, let's say one of the main reasons, as a person who studied history, why we are a few hundred years behind Europe and a few hundred years behind the rest of the world. because of the Turks who enslaved us. The Jewish people could not handle it. They could not handle slavery. This is why they migrated. It was an ethnic cleansing process by the Islamic Khilafah. And it was not coincidence why the Jewish people start returning to the land of Israel immediately after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Because we are talking about 400 years of ethnic cleansing. And people accuse the Jewish people, the indigenous people who have roots, who maintained presence, who were forced out of their land, spread throughout Europe. Then they had to face the Holocaust. And when they migrated back to their homeland, to where they belong, after many, many years of ethnic cleansing, they have been accused as colonizers. It does not make sense. Because people have the right, especially prior to Sykes-Picot. This is Sykes-Picot, by the way, when the land was divided, as you see, all the colors, the colonial entities of the Middle East. So there was no political borders. People were able to just ride the donkey from Mecca to Jerusalem. And nobody stopped them. So when people migrated from Europe because of war, when do people migrate throughout the centuries? People migrate when there is drought, when there is natural disaster, when there is flooding, when there is earthquake, when there is war. It's our right. Like, God forbids, if this world goes out of control, the political borders will not exist anymore. So in that situation, there was no political borders. This was just done in 1917, Sykes-Picot. So now to start believing that there is a border and there is a country with borders that existed before the existence of State of Israel in 1948, and it was called Palestine, and it has been occupied, is total insanity. It's against science, it's against facts, it's against the truth, it's against the Bible, it's against everything. I'm not saying that the Arabs did not exist. This is, again, my ethnicity, and I will never cancel their right to exist. In fact, Israel acknowledged the Arab presence. This is why there were just few 100,000 back in the day when Israel was established, and today we have more than 2 million Arabs who live in Israel. Well, some of them are actually judges in the Supreme Court. Find me one Jewish judge in Arab country. You know. Then they unfortunately, when I said about the false narrative, and people have been accusing Israel of ethnically cleansing the Arabs, such a big lie that is not going to help the situation. It will only get the situation worse and worse, and it's attracting all negative energy around the globe. And they have been weaponizing all the hateful people against the Jewish minority. I'm not here to advocate on behalf of the Jewish people, but I know the danger. If we legitimize such violence and hateful ideology against a religious minority or a human race, then what is going to be next? So the false narrative, this is where we need to just provide the facts. Was Palestine ever a country? And if it wasn't a country, a sovereign state with distinguished language, religion, or an ethnic majority, then it never existed. And if it never existed, this means that it has never been occupied. Then, oh my God, the United Nations is in trouble. Because what's so-called international law, it's considered the West Bank and Gaza occupied territories. But occupied from who? When they decided to invade Israel in 1967 with one goal, to annihilate the Jewish people, only because they are Jewish, by the way. And I take responsibility for my statement. If you want to cancel me, you can cancel me. This is the truth. They lost the war. Iraq, Jordan, Syria, Egypt, and so many volunteers from around the globe, they came and they outnumbered Israel multiple times with one intention. But somehow a miracle happened and they lost the war. This is when Israel had to take the West Bank, this red spot. I think most of us right now know what the West Bank and the Golan Heights, the Sinai Peninsula, and the Gaza Strip, where all the chaos is happening right now. That was the outcome of the Arab invasion of 1967. But why Israel stayed there? Because when Israel was established, it's in the coast area, the coastal, by the Mediterranean Sea. On the top sits the West Bank, on the top of the mountains. Then there is the Jordanian Valley. It's actually the lowest point on earth, which functions as a defense line. In order for any enemy to try to go into the valley and climb up the mountain, Israel had the possibility to stop them in the valley. If they had the opportunity to reach the top of the mountain, then they would invade the coast in no time, because the coastal belt, you can cross it on a motorbike in less than 15 minutes. So this is why for Israel, it's a matter of security, number one. It's not a matter of stealing land. Actually, in fact, they own the land, because when the Arabs decided a war against Israel and they lost the land, the winner decides the terms of post-war, especially if it did not belong to a sovereign country, to any sovereign country prior to the war. So you came and you tried to take over my territory. Then I kicked you out of a territory that actually does not belong to you. I'm just pushing you back for my security. So you don't have the capacity to invade me overnight and commit a Holocaust against my people. So why the Arabs felt entitled for that land? There is a reason, but I don't want to discuss it tonight, because it might take us to a dangerous place. Then after that, I may be labeled Islamophobic. Then I would be cancelled again. Maybe I would be sentenced to death again and again and again. So anyway, the Arabs, we had our opportunity to establish an Arab state before even the Palestinian identity was fabricated. We had our opportunity in 1948. We had equal opportunity. But instead of declaring our independence, we declared war against the Jewish people who just declared their independence. And the Jewish people did not have a problem. So, okay, here is a separation. It's part the land. You take this part. It's a very, very small land. Again, if you look at the Israeli map from the river to the sea, you can cross it in less than 1 hour. This is how small it is. And everybody is trying to force two-state solution after 7 major wars in the region. And they are trying to reverse the wheel of time somehow and cancel all the events that happened in the past 70 years of conflict and hatred and bloodshed. Well, how can anybody reverse all that? There is a new reality on the ground. It was possible back in 1948. Why didn't you take it? But they were blinded with hatred. And again, it was a matter between the Jews and the Arabs. It was not a matter between the Jews and the Palestinians. The Palestinians were not born yet. And of course, The Jewish people refused to identify themselves with Palestine because Palestine to them was the colonial entity, and they fought against the Brits and they earned their independence. If you study the Jewish history and their struggle to earn their independence, it was not given to them as a gift, as many people actually say. So things change over time. But Yasser Arafat declared the Palestinian independence, I think it was in 1988. This was 40 years after he had his first opportunity, or after the Arabs had their first opportunity to declare their independence. In 40 years, many, many things changed. And Israel would never trust the Arab countries ever again after their campaign in 1967, especially their war in 1973, which they got very, very close actually to annihilate the Jewish state. And this is why the Jewish people did not want to identify with Palestine, even though the Israeli Prime Minister at that time, Golda Meir, held a Palestinian passport. She was a Palestinian. But the Jewish people have an authentic identity, an identity that is older than 5,000 years, older than history. They choose to be their own true identity after the termination of the colonial entity in 1947, 1948. And why we think that we have the right to tell them, no, you don't have that right. No, Israel is known with overwhelming evidence to their existence, artifacts, archaeology, temple, currency. 5,000 years ago, or 3,000, thousands of years ago, let's say, it was the shekel. And today, it's still the shekel. It was the Bible, it's still the Bible. The temple. And the Muslims built their mosque on the top of the Jewish temple. And they have been preventing the Jewish people to worship freely in their most holiest site. And the state of Israel, in the heart of its capital, say it's okay. Let's get along, preventing their Jewish citizen from entering actually Temple Mount, to just avoid clashes with the Arabs or any wars. So tell me, who's taking responsibility and who's being actually irresponsible, waging religious wars and hatred against religious minority? Can we please see just the map number 3? So this is Israel today, and as you see, this is Ramallah up there. This is my hometown where I was born. I had never been to Gaza except like under this war. I went to Khan Yunis for just a couple of days to see Hamas tunnels. I wanted to go into them. I wanted to see them firsthand because I thought maybe it could be just like a lie. I have to go inside. I went in this tunnel, was 2-kilometer tunnel beneath Khan Yunis, where Hamas spent billions of dollars on building a metro. They could have built above the ground, but they choose to build below the ground, embedded in the most populated area in the Middle East, could be on the face of earth, Gaza Strip, per capita. So anyway, now they call it the West Bank, but remember my word, to Israel, this is a defense line. It's a defense line because in the surrounding areas, we have the Houthis in the south, then we have in Iraq a new Hezbollah, we have the Shi'is, we have the Islamic revolution of Ayatollah. They call it Iran wrongly. The people of Iran don't belong to that culture. It's just like another fanatic group who hijacked the Iranian people for the last 46 years. So basically, hundreds of millions of people. Israel is very, very small. We saw what happened on October 7th. They can invade in masses, then it would be chaos if Israel does not stop them in this natural defense line, the Jordanian Valley. The only way, or the other way, to nuke the people. And we don't want to reach that point, to start like throwing mass destruction weapon because Israel is totally outnumbered. So with that said, we need to respect the reality on the ground. We're not looking only at map. We need to understand geography. We need to understand history. And I separate myself. I don't want to consider myself educated. But you are educated people. And all this chaos is based on lies. So we must bring the facts and the truth to the public. Otherwise, this Palestine is a very, very dangerous trigger. And you see how it developed, how fast it developed. And today, so many people have been legitimizing violence by the name of occupation, colonialism. Even today here on campus, we have calling to divest from Israel, boycott Israel, sanction Israel, arm embargo. Why? Why? How else can we deal with Hamas? And this is an organization, by the way, my father helped establish. How else can we deal with this? And I tell you something, negotiations between me and my father reached a dead end. And that's me and my father. That's it. There is nothing to talk about. I cannot convince him, and he cannot convince me. And one of us is right, and the other is wrong. One of us is to the right side of history, and the other one is on the wrong side of history. And at this moment, I am not claiming that I am on the right side of history, but time will prove. What I know for sure, and where I stand in certainty, that violence is a dead end. And unfortunately, when they decided to go and did what they did on October 7th, I saw the footage that some of the public saw, and also I saw footage that was not released to the public, especially in relation to rape. How can you rationalize with people like this? That's it, it's dead end. It's over. And if Israel lose the war in Gaza, and this is what all the calls, by the way, for the ceasefire now, they want ceasefire now. Basically, they're telling Israel, drop your guns and accept the genocide that took place on October 7th. Accept the ethnic cleansing of 20 Jewish communities that they were killed based on their race, ethnic, and religious background. This is what defines a genocide. What's happening in Gaza is not ethnic cleansing, is not a genocide. But they have been enjoying the accusation of Israel, delegitimizing Israel, and creating a global chaos and spreading the false narrative of something called Palestine that never existed. This is why I am here today. And I take responsibility and I challenge the historians, I challenge the journalists, I challenge the philosophers, I challenge whoever, because I belong to that part of earth. This is my birthplace. This is where I came from. And earth has been crying. Enough. Enough is enough. Enough indoctrination, enough child abuse. They were not born Palestinians. They were born free. And they have the freedom to decide their future. And enough of Yasser Arafat's. And all these con artists who want to continue sacrificing children for their political and financial gain. Enough of this game. Enough. Call it Palestine, call it Wakanda, whatever you want to call it. So I don't want this to go so long, so I can take some Q&As. I can go on and on for eternity. For me, this is the hardest thing to talk about, but I have no escape. It's my responsibility. I spent half of my life in the Arab society, half of my life, and half of my life with the Jewish people, equally. And this is how I learned about both cultures. And this is how I know both societies and what they stand for. And one of them is the death culture that does not have actually regard to the human life, whether it comes to women or children. And I tell you, there is no society if women are not treated equally and respected and loved and protected, not abused and killed for very, very stupid and ignorant reasons. This is what we are dealing with. This is the root cause. It begins there. The universal design, man and woman, opposing forces. They clash, but somehow they find equilibrium. Then there is creation, and there are families, and there are like amazing things happening. Beautiful societies, and all type of creativity. But then, to have a society that is empowered by masculinity, this is an ugly society, and it's a violent society. The Palestinian problem is not a political problem, it's a psychological problem. It's a psychological problem. It's based on a false narrative. It's a narrative of victimhood. And the Palestinians, what so-called Palestinians, need to grow up. Time to grow up. They want to call themselves Palestinians. I don't care. But it will continue forever as a political ideology. Imagine. Some people claim to be fighting against colonialism, adapting a colonial entity as their national identity. What a joke. Against the indigenous of the people of the land that actually have all the evidence that support that. Accusing the indigenous of being colonizers and posing as the indigenous people. But this is the human delusion, the inversion of narratives. This is, again, it's a topic really to be discussed in the psychology departments. This is not a dispute over land. It's not about land. Israel is beyond, the Jewish capacity is beyond political borders. Just look around the globe. There are Jewish communities all over the world, and they have been contributing to life and to their societies. Most wonderful people. Just think about how many Nobel Prizes the Jewish people have, and compare it to the others without mentioning names. How many they have achieved. They are recognized by their violence. They are recognized by their intimidation and bullying. And they are recognized because they are a majority. And they're recognized because they have the oil money. And they are recognized because they own trusts, bonds, banks. And if they move their finances from here to there, what would happen to the system? Hence, the politicians have been compromised because they're afraid. So, you can think of it as a dispute between what's so-called Palestinians and Israel. And there is injustice against the Palestinian people that if we reward them today after October 7 and 70 years of targeting civilians indiscriminately, if we just tell them, here is a Palestinian state, let's fit it in this very small build, like the attempt of trying to fit 2 elephants in the eye of a needle. Let's try, see what happens. It's not going to work. Not in the near future. And I have to warn you, all the attempts trying to force Israel to do that are going to just complicate the situation. I'm not saying that the Arabs don't have the right to self-governing. They can self-govern, and we can help them with economy, with infrastructure. We can improve everything and remove actually all the corrupt leadership and give them a leadership that is elected from, let's say, at the beginning, from autocrats, people with experience, with knowledge, maybe graduates from Princeton and Harvard and other places, but they have been busy protesting on behalf of the corrupt leadership, instead of being like the actually enlightened ones to see it for what it is and say, these people don't represent us. They have been advocating on behalf of Hamas. Hamas would kill them. Hamas would kill anyone who disagree with them. So anyway, we have a huge responsibility, and we need facts, we need the truth, and we need to fight the false narrative. It's our duty to challenge them with facts. Next time when they say free Palestine, just ask them, what is Palestine? Ask them that. And please do a little bit of homework. It's not hard to figure out. If they want to be Arabs, I don't have a problem with that. If they continue to choose the Palestinian identity, I don't have a problem with that. But what I disagree with, and I will continue to fight with every power that I have, that they need to drop their violence. And they don't have the right to continue this violent indoctrination, forcing children to carry the burden of the mistakes of the past generations for eternity. This must come to an end. This is my job. I'm a child of that conflict, and I didn't know what was going on when I witnessed all the violence, when I was part of the violence, when I was pushed to be violent. But today I understand, and on that authority I speak, not on the authority of what's so-called international law that want to empower the perpetrators against the children and their future, that has actually been accusing Israel unjustly. And by the way, this hundreds of millions of people, okay, I don't want to say Muslims, but again, you can cancel me if you want. But this is an assault. It's a global assault. Hundreds of millions of people against a very small minority, repeating the same narrative. It became now acceptable as a version of truth. And we say no. We say no to that. We say no to violence. We must protect the children. We must break the vicious cycle of violence. Give the children the right to choose their future. Okay, and with this, I'll end this very long introduction. Please forgive me. And we open it for Q&A. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your amazing presentation. It's really an honor to hear you. I want to ask you, I agree with all the history and all the examples you gave us. I want to know, how do you see the future of Israel, or the future of the Arabs in Israel? Should they be citizens in Israel? How, like in Israel, we always talk about how it's dangerous for Israel if everybody would become citizens, and then it would be a Jewish state. So what's the future if not, like everybody here in the Western world talk about the two-state solution, which I agree sounds, it's absurd. But what is the solution if not this?
Arabs and Jews can get along eventually. The Arabs in Israel, they get along. They are part of the social fabric. But now with violence, there is a severe crack, I would say, in the relationship. The more violence they have, things are going to become harder to reconcile. And this is why all the voices that actually took advantage of the tragedy of Gaza, and now so many forces around the globe have been playing the savior. So many opposing forces. The communists, the Islamists, the feminists, even the rapists, all coming at one cause, and all of them have been swearing by the name of Palestine, chanting for Palestine. And this is why it's very hard to know what Palestine do they really mean when we have all these opposing forces in the same room. What do they really mean? And everybody's using Palestine only as a device, And they have been saying, globalize it. And I say, no, don't globalize it. We need to localize it. I don't want actually the Middle East to come to the United States. I don't want to see the Middle East narrative being adapted in the most prestigious and respectful educational institutions. And I mean Princeton and Harvard. I don't want to see that. It's very, very dangerous. Civilization depends on you guys. And we don't want to be infiltrated at this level, at this degree, by importing victim narrative. All of a sudden, instead of being the conquerors of the human delusion, of the cave of Plato, we are just stuck in it right now, not having the power to discern what is true and what is a shadow. The essence, the very foundation of our intellect and of our philosophy and of our everything, our civilization. So they want to globalize it, and this is the danger. If they succeed in building enough momentum, then this is going to be Gaza eventually. But unfortunately, instead of admitting that the use of violence proved to be wrong, that they achieved nothing, and when I say they, I mean the self-proclaimed Palestinians, regardless of their background and regardless of their goals or whatever they project on this concept of Palestine. So, first of all, we must work very hard to localize it. Keep it in the Middle East. Don't bring it to the United States. Because if they spread it worldwide, then they are going to just complicate the situation. They are going to make the problem irreversible. And we don't want to reach that point. Up to this point, I still have faith that the Arabs, the Jews, Druze, Persians, Kurds, these are legitimate ethnic groups of that region. They are known for their existence for thousands of years. And they are not religions. They can adapt, they can change, they can learn from each other, they can coexist, they can find an agreement. But ideologies and narratives and human delusion, that is an attempt to satisfy every group's political ambition that cannot be satisfied. And now I have also to come and compensate the people who never lived in the region, who want to push the violence in a certain direction by pushing false narrative. This is very, very dangerous. When they say free, free Palestine, who's going to pay for that? Who's going to pay for that? And is Palestine a hostage in my backyard that I need to free it? They should have been screaming, construct or build Palestine. What actually the Arabs failed to do. Palestine is the shame on their forehead that they failed to build their state, their Arab state. Instead, now they have only a concept and they are very excited about globalizing it. The more they globalize it, I tell you one thing, what will happen? This distance between the Arabs and the Jews in the Middle East will continue to widen. If we help them to drop violence, to accept facts, to accept that Palestine never exists, but still have the possibility of building a Vatican. You know, the Vatican does not have political borders, does not have armies, but it's one of the most powerful countries in the world and one of the richest countries in the world. So Why they insisting on the army? Why they insisting on the militia? Why they insisting on all that? And they want to keep the people divided. They divided the Arabs and the Jews by the name of Palestine for the last 70 years, and now they are dividing America, and they're dividing the West. And if we allow them to continue like this, we will look and we will see Gaza everywhere, and we don't want to get to that point. So before we talk about the future is here and it's now. It's our responsibility. We need to start to put our foot on the right path by being truthful, and also by being strong, and not to give in to false narratives. Sorry for the long answer. This one is very difficult for me to answer in a short way.
How can we empower more voices like you and to create an alternative political power to challenge Hamas?
Well, as long as they are willing to die, this is what it takes. You know, in my case, I jump first, then I think. I went against my rational mind. I went against my interests, my security, because whatever I had to witness throughout my childhood was just enough for me to rebel eventually. And I'm glad that I rebelled, and I told them, you know what, I don't care. But they want me dead. They want me dead, and many people are afraid. Many people don't want to lose their security. They're afraid to get out of their comfort zone. They're afraid to get out of the cave, back to the Greek philosophers. They want to just keep looking at shadows and continue to be believers. If I tell them there is a killer behind this wall, they're going to sit here for eternity scared of getting killed. But there could be only one courageous person, open the door and go to the back and look and says, like, there is no one there. And when he comes back to the room and say, hey, why are you scared? There is no one there. But that's the difference between the knower and the believer. And the majority of humanity are believers. They just go on the social media for a couple of hours, and all of a sudden they became historians. TikTok. And it doesn't matter, even if I bring to them the experience of 46 years of living at the depth of the epicenter of what's so-called Arab-Israeli conflict. They think that I'm ridiculous. And the easy thing is like, okay, you're still out. You're a traitor. This is the human denial. They don't want to hear it. And we tell them, hey, there is an elephant in the room. Wake up. So it's not about how many. Of course, we want the collective consciousness. We want to integrate it. But it's only by giving the facts and through the scientific approach. And I hope that I don't want to clown people. I don't want anybody to be me. I just want them to have critical thinking. And when that they can doubt their beliefs. And that they have the courage afterwards to challenge their belief system. You know how many people have been trying to, here in the United States, if it was Muslims or if it was Middle Easterns, I understand. It for them is like, how come did you live and survive without the tribe on your own, and you're still actually standing alone and standing strong and firm in your position? They know I'm supposed to be dead long time ago. This way they've been inciting. They want me dead. Every time, I'm an American citizen. When they say he's a traitor, they have been validating Hamas' death sentence against me. They're basically doing the same thing that my father did. So this is where the fear, this is where the barrier, where people cannot actually cross the mental barrier, because people are afraid to die. And I am not expecting from everybody to fight for their freedom if they have to die. So basically, I know who I am, I walk the walk, I do what I'm supposed to do. If I inspire others, I hope that they do it their creative way. And the reformation eventually will happen, whether if it's in my lifetime or after this body perishes. And I hope that we will help humanity to evolve to a much higher level of consciousness. Okay. Okay, maybe we take just the last question because it's taken too long. Please, make it a good question.
A lot of pressure here. So
Please.
You know the psychology of the leaders of Hamas better than anyone else. What I'm interested in knowing is what you think will help to achieve change. How can we make a change, a more positive change, knowing the psychology of Hamas? What do you propose in terms of either? I can't imagine talking to Hamas is going to do anything, but what's the solution? How do we achieve the solution of getting rid of Hamas, other than through returning violence?
Okay. Well, first of all, there are principles for dialogue, like to have a talk with somebody. First of all, they must believe in dialogue. If they don't believe in dialogue and they're pointing a gun towards your forehead and they say, I want it the way I want it, then we cannot negotiate with them. And when we have fanatics or extremists, terrorists who just made up their mind and they don't believe in diversity of life, they don't believe in dialogue, they don't believe in other opinion, and they want to act violently if you challenge their belief, or they want to cancel you completely or even sentence you to death if you challenge their logic or their delusion in this case, then we come to the inevitable, which is the use of force. And this is what's happening at this stage. So unfortunately, this war was inevitable. For Israel, there was no way to just sit down and accept that savages would come and do what they did to women, to children, to elders, to Holocaust survivors, to just basically civilians. It's impossible. So let us just go through this difficult time, which is the last resort. This is what Lao Tzu, one of the greatest Eastern philosophers, he always said that, or she, we don't know if it's a he or a she, Lao Tzu, that the use of force is justified, but as the final resort. And I think Israel has been doing everything within their ability to minimize the civilian casualty, and all the propaganda and the false narrative is based on Hamas statistics, who have weaponized civilians to delegitimize Israel globally, knowing what would happen if civilians would die. So they multiply, they exaggerate the statistics in order to gain global sympathy by sacrificing their own children. Multiple crimes, multiple war crimes. So we must remove them from power and God's willing that Israel will succeed if we give Israel enough support. As a democracy, forget about leaders, forget about politicians. As a nation, this war is not the war of the Israeli government. It's a war of a nation fighting for survival. And the nation of Israel does not want to cancel the Arabs in the Arab world. If you look at history and the relationship between Israel and the Arab world, Israel as a nation has been extending its hands to the Arab world since 1967. But the Arab world insisted on delegitimizing Israel. And now we have Americans, we have Europeans, because we have all these waves of immigrants who I don't want to say infiltrated, but they influenced the Western mindset. And now we start thinking like them. We should help them think like us. But we fell in their trap. And this is the reality. So, thank you. So basically, dialogue is a possibility. Now we are in a difficult phase, and I hope that we will overcome this. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving me this very important podium. God bless you. I count on you. I count on you. The generation count on you. Don't let us down. God bless you. Thank you very much.